let's look at the segment of fires. And we know that well, one person lost his life in a Kukumpi fire. But just the last week, we had one on our hands. A week before, we had the other in Kumasi. And so we're having a litany of issues, but not necessarily only about the Kukumpi fires, but in terms of who's supposed to play responsible roles when they're supposed to be in public office, and who is supposed to be ensuring their supervision, especially of assets, of state agencies, etc. Just making reference to what happened at the Central Medical Stores and a week before the ECG warehouse in Kumasi.
Oh, you want me to?
Yes, of course, you.
Oh, what do you mean by of course?
Well, because my
oh yeah, okay. All right, eye contact. No, yes, it's rather unfortunate because just some, let's say, the beginning of last year, we had so many fires. The previous year we had fires, and I remember that the beginning of, in fact, the most unfortunate one too was the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and stuff like that. And then it went on, and we all read about the fire service. I think one of the big men there was talking about how reports on these fires were not used, and he thinks that they would never be used. So it's a problem, because if ever there is any fire at all, what these guys do is that they go in there, make sure that they know the cause of fire, and that will be in their report. So if these reports are not used, this is what is going to be happening. Now, it's rather unfortunate. I always say that if something happens, you always want to look at yourself first instead of, pinpointing fingers at other people. Now, let's look at what is happening in this country. Even in your own offices, how many times would somebody come, let's say from the fire service or from any agency at all, to say that, oh, I'm coming to check A, B, C, D, E, yeah, before you can get your fire certificate to say that, look, this place is safe for people to work from.
That should be a normal practice?
It has to be a normal practice, periodically. You understand? Somebody should visit you here and say to you that, oh, that thing there can easily catch fire. How do you catch fire? Simple. Heat, yeah, and then your air, and then the fuel. So the fuel could be these papers, could be this chair, could be oil, could be anything at all. So if you take the Central Medical Depot, for example, I mean, if you have chemicals stuck in there, they are in boxes. Whatever is in the box itself is a chemical, and when you get them stacked so much, and probably there's no any supervision at all, then obviously there's this danger. The way our warehouses are built, before they are built, whether there are any inspections or whatever, nobody knows. Unfortunately, we now know that the whole place has no insurance. It tells you, oh yes, certainly, it tells you how people are just not serious. Can you imagine that in the report or what is being said so far, fire hydrants around the area weren't working?
Actually, the fire service has been complaining about this for a number of years now.
Well, you complain about it, but then obviously you are there, so you have to make sure. Don't just complain through what channel? Maybe a fire officer will come and sit here and complain. Complain through the right channel and make sure these things are done. And then they are tested periodically. You travel elsewhere, you see these hydrants being tested. You see water just flow along.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yes, just tested periodically. You understand? These, what do you call it, warehouses are supposed to be built in a way that, these fire tenders could easily reverse into them. You travel. I mean, that's why people say travel and see. It's not like just travel for traveling's sake. Travel and see the way people do whatever they got to do, so that when you come back here, you do the same thing. Let me take you to another area that is worried. What do you call it? That Shell filling station that got burnt in Kumasi. My dear friend, look around the capital city. The way it is littered with filling stations.
Like
You see, that's dangerous?
Very.
I'm not saying filling stations are not good for us. It tells you even maybe how the economy is booming, or the petrol sector is booming, but where they are located.
Residential areas.
But you go to America, there are gas stations all over. You go to the UK, there are gas stations all over.
Where are they located?
Not in residential, between two houses.
Take the junction from what do you call it, Nyamicha Junction, all the way to Malam. I think they used to have 2 filling stations, or I've forgotten the names, but now you have about 14.
Why do you count?
Yeah, sometimes you have.
You see, when you have to come here to talk, you have to make sure that you are facts.
So you can't.
You go there and there's a filling station that is not even 30 meters away from a school. You use the same road, there's a filling station sharing a common wall with somebody else's residence.
One is
The residence is green. The station is what? Shell. Are you getting me? No, don't laugh. It is very, very serious.
No, I love your submission. I'm not laughing. I just love your submission. It's just open points.
Yes,
that's why.
and you ask yourself, where is the environmental agency? What are they doing?
Take money.
Are you getting me? Look, when you stand, let's say some few meters from a pump, what do you see? A mirage, don't you? It tells you that that substance does evaporate.
It's inflammable.
Yes.
Very.
So it has to be at a distance from people. It's as simple as that. Now, let me tell you something. Use that same road. Yeah? Come back.
We're talking about the N1 stretch, right?
Not the N1 stretch. Well, the Nyamicha Junction is on the N1. Turn right.
Okay.
Yeah? On your way to Malam. Yeah? You get to a point, you turn left, it's going to take you to Racecore and the stuff. Yeah? Count the number of filling stations. Yeah? Come back into your studio and tell me the number of fire hydrants that you would count.
Of course, we know there are these facilities on the road, and we don't have the precautionary.
Certainly. Certainly. So what I'm trying to say is that we do things haphazardly. We don't take so many things into consideration. Do you know that before you construct a filling station, well, the size of your tank should be considered?
The size of your what?
The tank, the reservoir should be considered. So what sort of reservoirs do they have there? When you travel elsewhere and it is too close to a residential area, the size of your reservoir is as small as something, just as something that if
So that when it becomes combustible,
yes, it will not be too disastrous. I mean, drive around the city, and it's like, I mean, is
and
it?
you know that in Ghana, if you don't build big reservoirs, when there's shortage, like we had in the last period, you'll be suffering, and you yourself you'll be coming to so you won't get fuel. And I know within the period.
So now you
I'm not justifying. I'm not justifying.
No, you're justifying my point that these filling stations are situated in a very, very dangerous areas.
Yeah.
Because if it is the norm here that the reservoirs are to be huge, then of course all of them there are filling stations with huge reservoirs.
But it's a good point he's making, and all of you have made critical observations on this very subject. The point is, even for the fuel stations, etc., or even for warehouses and all, that are going to contain certain materials, whether they're bonded or not, you're supposed to go to the EPA, and the EPA plays a critical role in all this.
Yes.
But permits are always given.
That's it. And that's our major, that is our major problem. When you have an institution that is not working,
What do you mean they're not working?
No,
they have good offices.
they're supposed to work.
They have directors.
Please, they're supposed to implement their laws.
They write report. They undertake a lot of activities.
And we all accept it. We all accept that it's good. Don't we have people going around to certify roads, that the roads have been properly built, only for potholes and whatnot to come up after 6 months of usage? But they get paid for that kind of shoddy work. Don't we have people actually certifying that certain electrical gadgets are good for us, only for them to turn out and burn out, homes and stuff? So the whole thing is that we have a problem when it comes to personnel. People are just, I wonder if they put the right people at some of these places, or they just put political friends. Because if you don't know what the whole thing about safety is about, and somebody just goes and puts you in an office, you just sit there. All you do is just sign documents. These filling stations don't just spring up. Someone authorizes that it's okay to put them there. And even when people complain, it gets nowhere. Because I go back again to us as political leaders. Most of these filling stations belong to political players.
As far as I'm concerned.
Oh, I'm telling you, you go and do your checks. Yeah. The ones by the wayside that belong to the Gao small people, that's different. But a new one shooting up is the Novo rich in our society who are putting up these places. And they have no consideration whatsoever. So long as I want to get this thing here, I must get it. And it's affecting all of us. Take the central stores, medical stores. You just can't imagine that such a huge edifice will not be insured. And that they don't even have maybe a hydrant close to. And even if all the hydrants are there, they are not working. So what's the point of importing so many fire tenders and not having water to feed them? A fire tender gets to a place and there's no water. So what's the use?
You're the last and have to go to the sea.
Yeah, you get to the scene and you go empty.
And from the point when from the scene or the scene of the incident to the sea is very far.
So
and there will be traffic.
But then the seawater is not good for fighting.
Well, that's
fire.
where they went to, we're told. I know someone who works there, yes.
Let me
I
ask
know
you,
someone
Roland.
who works there. It's in my church. Yeah, that's why he said that day they had to go to the sea.
We take too many things for
They
granted.
went to the shore to go and take water.
We take too many things
Unless
for
they
granted.
want to dispute it because somebody was there.
The central stores, the burning of the central stores, I have a problem with it. I want to ask if they've been audited. Have they been auditing the central stores?
We hear, according to the report, and all this is just speculation by the media, that there was a difficulty with accountability, and so the former health minister, Shariaite, had, based on a recommendation, ordered for an audit, and that was also, of course, seconded by the current minister.
So what is audited? And who are the auditors?
And so they were about starting with the process of doing adequate auditing.
So all these years?
No, they do internal auditing, but I think it was because an issue had cropped up, and so they thought that they needed some level of auditing.
So all those people who did the internal auditing, they must be held responsible.
Why?
Because you must, whilst you're auditing.
You just go and take stock.
No, you don't just take stock.
What
you
do
have
you
to
do?
make sure that there are safety regulations governing the place.
Well, for a ministry, they should have people who should be responsible for
that
estate
person,
and safety.
that
That will not be
auditing
fair
institution,
on the auditors.
it will be fair. It will be fair on the auditors. It is part of their job to make sure that there is a fire safety regulation that is being applied.
Do you think as public officials, and not necessarily the political leaders, and I know you're talking about leadership and the way leadership is critical, but at all levels of leadership that we have experienced or are experiencing currently, there's a huge deficit. I.e., somebody is appointed, whether it's through the Civil Service Commission, and because of that very longitude of sustainability of work, perhaps that person is not doing work adequately. There should be somebody who is responsible for these warehouses.
Well, maybe there are people responsible. But I'm also saying that when you go in there to audit, you audit and all these things are supposed to be included. But I want to ask you a question, Roland. Have you ever in this house...
You mean you're saying rhetoric?
Yes.
Because I can answer.
Yes, so I'm just asking you. Multi-TV, have you ever had a fire drill? Where you just shut down?
You want a response?
Yes, I want a response.
Have you ever had a fire
drill?
drill? I haven't
You know, I don't think so.
And where is your assembly point?
You understand? Where's your assembly
point?
point?
Former workplace, I haven't been to a fire drill. I see extinguishers there, and I know that for about 13 years I worked there, the same ones have been there for all those years.
So you don't have a fire drill. You know? So what happens is, if there is a fire in this house right now, touch wood, you will all go falling in between yourselves and not knowing where to go. But you must, as a company, occasionally have a fire drill. And you must have an assembly point where you all go so that they will know that with all these wires that are on the ground, if there is a fire in this place, it's going to trample people and people are going to...
You're saying there's a lot of deficiency within our system.
There is a lot of deficiency in the system. When I was in school, we used to have a fire drill. Fire, and everybody runs out. And we have an assembly...
Which year was that?
In the 70s.
We live in the 2000s.
That's what I'm saying. So,
new millennium.
Yes.
Things have changed.
Things have changed for the worse instead of for the better.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes. You understand? And it is important that we start having fire drills to enable people save lives. Because when you do the fire drill, then you see the deficiencies. And then also we have a fire service that for me is not really
accessible.
They give you 192 or whatever, you call sometimes, nobody picks up, they come to your house, no water. You understand? And then also you ask yourself, the kinds of fire extinguishers that we're getting here, they now come up. After this fire, I saw a fire officer trying to tell us which fire extinguishers we should use. All this while, we've been buying the ones by the roadside. No one is saying anything. Then suddenly this big fire comes, and then somebody comes and says, those ones are not good. Whose duty is it to bring better standards of fire extinguishers into this country? Isn't it Standards Authority, to make sure that we are getting the proper standards? But we are watching them sell it on our roads. We are watching people, our taxi drivers, our transport drivers, who are actually transporting Ghanaians to buy these things. And we are not saying anything until something happens. So we need to go back to the basics. We need to start thinking about safety in this country. Because somehow, one of these days, it is going to be something that we would not all want to get up in the morning and read about or talk about. Just like what happened in the central stores.
You talk about inspections and you feel that critical.
Certainly. I was going to come to that point.
Okay, as you add that, other things we have taken for granted, even as ordinary citizens, we build houses, spend a lot of money.
Yes.
And for example, I don't have fire extinguisher. She was just saying something, reminds me I need to have a fire extinguisher. And I said, I don't have one. If something happens, what would I do?
Well,
and
but do you know where to even buy a proper one?
Well, at least.
You go to the roadside, which they're not telling us it's not good enough.
Well, at least a fire alarm. Yeah?
Fire alarm.
Yeah, common fire alarm.
I need to install that.
Yes, install that in your house, in the kitchen.
It will connect to an agency.
No, I don't think we have the
it will
system
give you
here.
the smoke detector.
You see, I always say that the player can never be the referee. And when you travel outside Ghana, in these developed
discussion,
countries,
the player is?
Players are not the referees. Are you getting me? So, for example, if you are Ghana Education Service, you don't inspect yourself. Are you getting me? If you are the fire service, yes, you can make sure that you go to certain places, educate them, but you outsource the inspectors. When they bring in their reports, then you issue certificates.
And pay them.
Environmental agency or whatever you call them should make sure that they have inspectors who eventually
perhaps outsource it, inspectors. That
is the key. That is the key. Inspection. Make sure that the referee is not the same person who is playing the game, or the one playing the game is not the referee.
Perhaps they don't have enough funding.
Oh, please.
Because if you're talking about inspection,
look,
we can have thousands of people employed by the EPA, and they will go on inspecting every day because
it is the key.
I mean, the households are many.
Let me give you a clear example.
Please do.
Yeah, Madam asked something about multimedia. Yeah, assuming the fire service official came here and straight away went to your CEO, who had just asked you to make sure that everything is okay here, and you okayed it. He goes in there, and because it's on paper that is okay, he also okayed everything, and then issue a certificate without coming here, because somebody here thinks that this is fine by whatever standards you don't know. But then if you outsource it to somebody who is not into this at all, but will come and say that, look, I think that should not be here, then of course, before you get your certificate, then of course we are on the right track. Look, offices, when you travel to the UK, the Americas, the Germanys and stuff like that, you have buildings where fire drills are not like every month, it's like every Friday.
Yeah, fire drills.
Every Friday.
It's a fire drill.
Every Friday.
Everybody's out.
Everybody's out to the assembly point.
So what? UK?
Everywhere. Go to the States. Go to Germany. Go to.
So it means when we visit, we have to visit the right places.
And talk to the right people. And eat fufu and come back.
Go and sit at home in.
You understand?
In the UK or in the US, and then
but then it boils down to what? Education.
We lack knowledge and.
Why don't we even start with the schools and the offices?
The schools.
The fire service. I mean, you visit the offices. You visit the schools. Right to, let's say, Bank of Ghana. Next Friday we'll be there to teach people the kind of fire extinguishers that they have to use for which kind of fires. Are you getting me? And go through the Bank of Ghana building and then make sure that everything is in place. You see, you do these things. You go to the schools, teach them all about fire, how to put them out, And even how, when you finish school, you could get into what? The fire service. I mean, these things, do them. I say, those of us who are above 40, we have our bad habits. But when we start with this sort of education, those who are coming up to replace us, you find out that the whole cycle will change. And then everybody will be very, very careful with whatever he or she does. You understand? I know that the travel and see there. It's true. Look, there's a system where when you have your smoke alarm, everything, the alarm, everything is set. There's something that when you press, it's going to the ambulance. You press, it's going to the fire service.
Yeah.
You press,
But
it's
we
going
don't
to
have
the
the
police.
system here.
But we can get the system.
We can get a system.
Yes.
It's affordable. We can get the system.
You see, we can get a system.
Just that we don't
They
know.
do that by what, GPS or what?
Well, whatever they do it with, but it's,
But I
it's
think
there.
I think that it connects to something.
Yeah, because, for
the
example,
satellite, which is very, very expensive.
Yeah.
Connects to something to the satellite, which is very, very, very expensive.
GPS.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, it's all about education. One, it's all about
If
the
we're
player,
educated, we would then invest in some of
Yes.
these things.
and it's all about the
But
player who
it
can
takes
never be the
leadership.
referee.
It means we
And-
have
and you know what?
weak leadership in various sectors.
That is exactly what I keep saying to you, Lord, that we always tend to lift our heads up too high, yeah? Saying that when we talk about leaders, we always look up and say, oh, the president or whatever, yeah? But
No, but it's not that.
it's not that. Those in the
Even
middle.
us.
Yeah.
Even us.
I mean, everybody
You
at
know?
every
Because,
level.
you know, Roland,
Those in the middle.
when you go for a building permit, they're supposed to look for those places that you can leave if there's a fire. Some of us are building houses with just one entrance. There's a fire and you are stuck in there. You can't come out. Have you understand?
You're casting your mind back to your
yes,
house.
You must.
Yeah.
Look at him.
You see, yes, casting his mind back to his house. But we
Yeah.
are building places that is not even accessible for a fire tender. Now we build with all kinds of things around our gates, and when the fire tender comes, you can't even enter your house if there's a fire.
We have this roof.
Oh
mini
yes,
roof that we do.
yes,
No,
and
no,
all
what do you
those
call
kinds
it?
of
Burglar
things.
proof or-
Some
No.
are no.
The gate.
The
Oh, the
gate.
gates.
The
Yes.
gate, there's a mini roof.
It's
there.
a mini roof,
Whether it's for decor, I don't know.
whatever. You know, sometimes
And the
just for you
fire
to
tender,
stand.
you know, is as tall as any trailer you
So
can find.
assuming it comes there and it gets to your gate,
you can't enter.
it can't enter.
So
So,
it has to be. it has to
you
be
know, so
broken.
at least your building must conform
Be
with those
accessible.
kinds of things. It must be accessible. Then you have a
We're
house.
living in ignorance in many respects.
Total ignorance.
Travel
and then
and see.
You have,
But people
you have your
travel.
house.
Many of the people who are guilty of some of these things travel.
Yeah,
they
but
go
you-
to Dubai, they go to
Oh,
the
but
UK,
that, they go shopping.
they go to the US.
They
no.
go sightseeing.
No, you can't say that.
No,
alone.
they go sightseeing. They go, and those who go to the UK, some of them from wherever they're going, their hotel.
Some of them have lived there. So
Well-
by when they come to do things differently.
Well, some of them have lived there, but I guess it's exposure in all angles. You can live somewhere and still be a villager. You can, be in the city and still be a villager.
That is why we say that
It's-
experience
It's one of those things.
is not the best teacher.
It's
You
sad.
could just be passing through.
So what's that knowledge? Knowledge is.
No, when you have that experience and you take it in and you impart it to somebody else or your society
That's
or
when
your
it's
community, that is when
that's
it is
when it's
useful.
useful.
That is when you could
know?
say that, yes, I have the experience.
and,
I have been A, B, C, D before. You understand?
Now we're going all about, and typically of Ghana, it doesn't matter which government is in power. We set up committees, and from the committee, the next disaster comes, and then we forget the next one. And I can tell you, that following, having practiced media for a number of times, how many committees we've had. Malamisa committee, a lot of the committees, things that we talk about. We've set up a committee, we're going to investigate the next disaster will occur or incident will occur, not necessarily fire, maybe something else in another sector. We forget about it.
Yes. Or we don't implement the
What should
findings.
we be doing beyond the issue of committees?
Beyond the issue
The
of
president visited there and said, well, somebody needs to be held responsible for this, and it's something we
that's
don't do.
for the central medical
response.
stores.
Okay.
Yes. And I was saying that if you look at Kokompe, for instance, what committee are you going to set for Kokompe? Kokompe was not supposed to be there in the first place.
It's an illegal
It's an
settlement.
illegal
That has
settlement.
been legalized.
It's been legalized. So what are you going to set up a committee to go and do at that place? The whole thing is that we need to educate our people to understand safety regulations. And we need to get people in the right places to do the right jobs. That's all there is to it. You understand? For instance, we are now, one thing that the ECG is doing that I'm happy about is that they are now examining electricians, giving them certifications, so that at least when you're going to wire your house, you have a competent electrician. But then you have a competent electrician, and the products that are on the market are inferior, of inferior quality. So when the doomsaw comes, then your house catches fire. You understand what I'm saying? So our standards authority will have to be up and doing, make sure that we get the right caliber of cables in this country, we get the right personnel to fix those cables, and then we as individuals should also be safety conscious. We must be safety conscious. You don't burn a candle, leave it, and then go out. You understand? All these things, we're supposed to know these simple things. Then somehow we might be able to. But as for the committees, it's just trati. Honestly, the committees that we've had is just for tea drinking and chatting. How many hours do they really talk serious?
So they do talk.
Well,
the point that they come out with good outcomes.
And then what happens?
How do we implement the outcomes of the issue?
I don't think
that putting together the committees is the problem.
It collects that. The implementation is the problem.
It's the responsibility to implement whatever the outcome.
And education.
Yeah.
Look,
Education is important.
But even then, prevention is better than cure. I'm not talking about education.
Yeah.
Yes,
Actually, the two of you.
Yes.
I had some kids come to my office, and I was so relaxed. And then one of them just went around in my office putting off the sockets.
Yeah.
And I said, what are you doing? He said, but sir, you're not using the socket, so why are they on? I said, what do you mean? She said, they're on, so anything at all can happen.
And sparks like
Yeah, it does.
And then you're wasting it. As I said, are you getting me? At this age, I
Yes.
was thinking that, well,
Since
if
it's
the
off. That's it.
well, whether it's on or off, once there's no plug in there and you're
Nothing
using it, nothing is happening.
Yeah.
You understand? Where did these young girls got this from? From school.
Education.
You understand? From school. And I'm talking about this thing happening in the UK.
It's
Are you
education.
getting what I'm trying to say? So let us make sure that
that was an experience you had in the UK.
Yes.
Oh, not in Ghana.
You see,
I know school children from Ghana educated.
and that is why I'm
For
saying
once
that,
I was happy.
Look, the
You've dumped in my spirit.
exactly. You see, how did they get to know
UK
that?
school children don't know.
How
Oh,
did they
yeah.
get
Teach
to know
them
that?
basics.
Because the fire service, the army, the police,
They talk to them.
They talk to them. They visit the schools.
Talk to them.
After telling them what can happen to you and what constitutes fire and whatever and how you can put it off and blah blah blah, they also talk to them as to how you can become a fire service personnel. If it is the army, they talk everything and then they tell you how you can become an army officer, prison officer. Oh, you say they go to the schools. And that's
The army and they'll come to you for recruitment.
yes.
Yes.
But here, even before they form their announcement,
They've already taken. It's now political.
So why should you be told?
Mama.
And you know that the vacancy will be
we're trying to change things. You see, when you do these things, you change
Well,
society.
I know
you
there are
put certain
issues
things
of.
right. So
I know that, for example, it's been advertised for application into health training institutions, and I know that there are more students to enter these institutions than the intake will be.
whatever you advertise, there'll be more people applying for that.
That's why you
particular-
see.
That's exactly.
Okay.
So
now I know on this very subject we can be on it for the next 1 hour.